In March of 2004, I witnessed live NASCAR action for the very first time, watching Bud Pole qualifying at my home track of Las Vegas. Back in those days, it was hard to get Cup Series race tickets, so qualifying was the closest Cup Series action I had seen. But later on that fall, I would return to my home track, only this time to witness my first ever race. Well, actually, my first ever pair of races. This is revisiting my first ever NASCAR/IndyCar race.
Drivers, start your engines!
The engines are fired up, the showgirls helping out in Vegas, and that's only Vegas style when you're at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
September 25th, 2004, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series is in Las Vegas to run the Las Vegas 350. Mike Skinner and Dennis Setzer make up the front row and lead the field to the green flag, but we almost had our first caution right away. The 29 of Deborah Renshaw and the 08 of Ken Weaver make contact right away. Mike Skinner, right from the start, rolls out to a massive lead, while on lap 5, Jack Sprague would unfortunately DNF with engine issues. Then on lap 21, I witnessed my first ever live NASCAR caution.
Oh, we got problems in turn number one. Smoke coming out of the...
Looks like Kelly Sutton, maybe the 02 truck.
Back of the 02 of Kelly Sutton.
There's the very end of what happened there. See the roof flap come up on the truck. That keeps the trucks on the ground.
A very weird place to get spun around going into turn one.
I don't think we're seeing the contact that led up to that truck spinning right there.
Once we return to green flag racing, we immediately see trucks going 3 and 4 wide. Before the race reaches lap 30, we see another incident, this time the 67 spinning out in the infield. This turned out to be future Cup Series driver David Reagan. But while everyone was focused on the truck that just spun out, my focus throughout most of the race was on my favorite Truck Series driver, Bobby Hamilton Sr. Not only was he a championship contender, but was running a special Square D scheme with flames. Steve Park was able to pass Mike Skinner for the lead and held it for 7 laps before our second caution came out.
Got back into the infield. Didn't have enough the first time, so he thought he'd take another spin through the infield. This is a look coming off of turn 4.
You see him get sideways coming off turn 4. It looked very much like his first spin. Went through the grass. The first one didn't. He made no contact this time either, I don't think, so he's got no contact.
When the race went green again, we had a pair of new drivers battling for the lead. Future Cup Series star Carl Edwards and future Truck Series champion Matt Crafton. But Steve Park was able to get the best of them and held on to the lead for 53 laps. Eventually, he would have to surrender his giant gap once the caution came out again, this time for a contender.
And problems with Carl Edwards as he goes screaming across the front stretch grass, makes his way back out onto the track, but the caution comes out. And we can go for a ride with Carl Edwards and see just what it's like going through the infield grass at about 160 miles an hour.
We saw the 4 truck on the inside of him, Bobby Hamilton. Carl got loose out on the outside and had to chase the truck down the hill to catch it.
What is it tonight with future Cup Series Roush drivers driving through the infield? You also have to remember, at this point in the season, Carl Edwards is a Truck Series championship contender. While trying to get those points he had lost back, on the restart, he nearly ran into more problems.
And we'll take a closer look at that restart. He got a little squeezed right here.
Way up almost to the outside wall. That's the 2 truck of Brandon Miller. No contact there, no harm, no foul. Carl was able to get on by without hitting the outside wall or the 2 truck of Brandon Miller.
The 4th caution of the race came out when the 08 of Ken Weaver spun out on the front stretch. Also, let me take a moment to show you the crowd size NASCAR used to have for the Truck Series. I couldn't find the exact attendance numbers for this race, but it is definitely way more than we see for Truck Series races today. Meanwhile, the truck I had been focused on the most throughout the race, Bobby Hamilton Sr., was having a mediocre run. While he wasn't able to compete for the win, he was still flirting with a top 10 finish, but unfortunately, because Setzer was running up front for most of the race, had to relinquish his points lead. Meanwhile, up front for the lead, it was looking like perhaps this race would go green the rest of the way, with both Steve Park and Mike Skinner battling for the lead. After only running 11 laps from the last caution, we would end up getting our 5th and final caution of the evening.
The big story is why we're under caution. We talked about who was in the points championship contention. The gentleman that was in 3rd is now smoking, and he is off the track. Carl Edwards, engine problems in the Super Chips 99.
Unbelievable. Came in here 39 points out of the lead. Had gained 165 points in the previous 3 races. Going to end up finishing probably in the 30s somewhere, so it's going to take a big hit in the point standings.
The last caution of the race would lead to varying strategies, which included the 15 of Shane Meal. Some teams opted to give up track position for the sake of new tires, and the 15 was one of them. For this strategy to work, their hope is that this race goes green the rest of the way. While he's working his way through the pack, the 30 of Todd Bodine's truck is lighting up at the right time, taking the lead from Steve Park with 30 laps to go. While he's driving away with the lead, one of the commentators can't help but notice that the 15 is closing in lap by lap.
The only spoiler that I can look at is maybe the 15 truck that's coming up through there with those fresh tires, but he's got to make up over 5 seconds.
Yeah, he's over 6 seconds behind right now, Chad. We're just 23 laps to go, so I don't think he's going to have enough time. Now, if the caution comes out and it closes up this field, that could be a whole nother story. And I would wonder if any of these drivers would come in and put the tires on. Again, I don't think any of the leaders will. As Ray told us, Todd Bodine, the team does not plan on pitting and putting tires on. Some of the drivers at the back of the pack might, but unless they have a whole bunch of laps, I don't think it's going to be enough laps to make that much of a difference.
It was really 50-50 at this point. Some thought Todd Bodine had enough of a gap to hold on to the win, while others were noticing the 15 was picking off positions one at a time. After passing Steve Park for 2nd place, the intervals from 1st to 2nd began to close lap by lap. With less than 10 laps to go, Shane Meal was able to get the lead down to less than a second, but by the time we get to 2 laps to go, he's on Todd Bodine's back bumper. Shane Meal was not going to be denied his first win, and those who were watching NASCAR during this era know how aggressive he was. So coming off of turn 4, Meal gave Bodine the old bump and run on a 1.5-mile track. Once the 15 got out in clean air, it was all smooth sailing from there.
Looking for his first ever win in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Todd Bodine falling back away from him, and it looks as though the Whitaker Farms number 14 of Shane Meal may claim its first win in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series.
He drove up right behind Todd Bodine, got him a little bit loose, bumped him, and here he goes.
Coming out of turn number 4, Shane Meal will win the Las Vegas 350.
Shane Meal was now officially a NASCAR Truck Series winner after being suspended from NASCAR indefinitely towards the end of the 2003 season. This was a feel-good comeback story. What makes this victory even more interesting was the way he celebrated. After parking his truck on the front stretch, he immediately gets out and throws his helmet into the grandstands. I was actually in that very same area where he threw it at. My mom was yelling at me to go run down and get it, but some other fan was way too quick. This would turn out to be Shane Meal's only win in NASCAR. As we know now, he returned to the Busch Series in 2005, but unfortunately couldn't stay clean. After a 3rd suspension for drugs, he was immediately banned for life. Now at this point, once the race concluded, me and my mom were about to leave the track, but we immediately saw other cars rolling out after the race on pit lane. As it turns out, this was the Champ Car Series. Yes, they had a race planned immediately after the Las Vegas 350, so me and my mom decided to stay and watch. Right at the very beginning, one of the cars had to pull off due to mechanical issues. That turned out to be Paul Tracy. They were never able to get it fixed, and Tracy never ran a single lap in the race. At this point, my first grade self was already extremely tired from being at the track all evening. While there was some close racing every now and then, for the most part, it was extremely spread out. Plus, I was looking for the 7-Eleven car of Tony Kanaan for most of the race, and I couldn't find him because at the time, I didn't know that there were 2 entirely different series. Once the first caution of the race race came out for Ryan Hunter race spin, my mom asked me if I wanted to go home because at this point we were both tired, and I said yes. So at the first ever IndyCar race I was at, I didn't even stay for the whole thing. Sebastian Bourdais ended up winning the race, and that's the story of my first ever NASCAR/IndyCar race. It was pretty unique being able to see entirely different forms of racing for the first time in person on the same evening. Let me know down in the comments below what your first ever motorsports race was like. And once again, that'll do it for another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.